Hello, welcome to today's webinar, Humanizing Case and Account Management using Dynamics 365 and SharePoint. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You are welcome to submit questions at any time using the chat window on the right side of your screen. We'll address them during a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. However, if we don't manage to answer all your questions, someone will follow up with you shortly via email. We'll also be making a recording of the webcast today so that you'll have that in just a couple of days to view. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker, Richard Poole, Chief Technology Officer of EMEA at Harmony. Richard is the Chief Technology Officer for EMEA at Harmony, working directly with the Harmony field teams and partners. Bringing with him 15 years of experience in data management systems, Richard has helped many companies realize significant benefits in productivity enabled by collaborative platforms. Richard earned his Bachelor of Engineering degree in Automotive Engineering from Loughborough University. Richard, take it away.
Thank you, David, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. So I think, the challenge that I think most business users have these days is that there's lots of different applications that they need to actually interact with in order to get their work done. And some recent independent studies have shown that on average, the typical knowledge worker uses between 9 and 10 applications to get their job done. And that could be obviously things like Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And it could be, like an ERP system like SAP, or it could be a CRM system like Dynamics, for example, or Salesforce. And those applications you really need to dive into and out of on a regular basis. And typically, again, most people have between 5 and 9 of those applications open at any one time. I know that if I look at my desktop, I've typically got the CRM system open, Outlook with a few windows and a couple of browser sessions open, connecting to our support system and all those kind of things. And it's really challenging to actually stay focused on what you need to do in order to carry out the tasks that I have in hand. And the flip side of that is that people still use email as the main system that they kind of interact with on the most regular basis. In fact, most people kind of check their email. It says here, and on average, at least 5 times an hour. I think a lot of the time it's more regularly than that. Even if you're in meetings and you're on calls, people are checking their mail all the time to see if there's something new that they need to actually react to in a timely fashion. But also their email client is typically the application that people, start up first thing and have open all day, like say, kind of checking their email all the time. And those kind of emails can often be distracting. And you need to stay focused on what you have at hand and what you need to actually achieve. But also because people love email, it's the application they spend their time in. They're getting correspondence from clients, customers, colleagues, suppliers, etc. The natural way for people to actually share and collaborate documentation, for example, is also by email. So, like you tend to receive, probably a handful of attachments every day, some of which are relevant, some, things that you need to really take an in-depth look at and maybe make some changes to and send them back. But also, like sending documents, it's the most natural thing for people to do, to actually attach a document that they've been working on from their PC, for example, attach it to an email, send it out. And obviously that does have a knock-on effect of lots of uncontrolled documentation going around by email. And there's better places for that to actually be stored. So the fact that we're actually connecting to lots of different applications and lots of different systems means that it's quite challenging to kind of tie all that information together, because for example it might be like I've got a document on my machine I've been working with, I'm using my email to communicate with by by sending and receiving the email messages, attaching documents to that. There is a better way to work, managing those documents in SharePoint, for example, interacting with the relevant and appropriate records in Dynamics, for example, or Salesforce as a CRM system. But there's really there's not much link between the two. And for example, like there's, documents, where should they reside? They shouldn't really reside in a CRM system because it's not a document management system. It's a customer relations management system. So it's more around records and workflows and account information and that kind of stuff. And obviously storage in that kind of platform is not really optimized for document management, whereas SharePoint very much is. And that's really where we can really add some value here to actually bring all of that together. So Harmony has a technology in it now called Collage, which allows us to connect to those different systems of information and bring them together in a focused way in the environment that people are spending their time. So just going back over what we've just discussed, my Outlook is where I'm spending my time. Wouldn't it be great if I can bring all the relevant information, whether it's the documents in SharePoint, the emails that I'm receiving, and the account information in Dynamics, all in context with each other in one easy to use, intuitive interface. And so I can bring notifications about all of those sources, tying them together by intelligently identified topics in the environment that people are spending their time, their email client. So let's take a look at how that actually works and how that can really bring a lot of benefit to the typical business user that has to use a CRM system, a document management system, as well as other areas as well. So if I take myself as an example, one of my roles is as a technical account manager, looking after pre-sales activity. And, I've got a lot of activity on the go at any point in time. There's a lot of people interested in our products. And so we have to manage a lot of demonstrations, a lot of pilots that people want to evaluate the solution in their own environment. But I need to be able to understand like the urgency and the priority of maybe one project over and above another project. And it's very difficult for me to kind of gauge that. And also find out updates on information that are relating to, let's say, the highest priority accounts that I'm actually working on. So I've got a number of those systems that we've identified that I have to use on a day-to-day basis. It might be obviously in my email. I've got questions coming from clients. There might be scheduling information and meetings, putting together how-to guides and training material and those kind of things. And obviously I'm communicating both with my colleagues in the sales team and with R&D and marketing, and also with those clients externally as well. But I also need to have a focus on the big picture of where those accounts are in, for example, Dynamics. What's the opportunity, when's it likely to close, all that kind of information. Also, we use Zendesk as a support system. So I need to know, for example, while I'm running a pilot with a prospect, have they been having any dialogue with our support team? Have they opened any support cases? Is there anything that's going to impact that sales process, for example? And likewise, on the post-sales side, we want to manage from a technical account management point of view, the success of implementations and customers so that we can keep a good eye on what's happening. But also, we use Office 365. We use Yammer as a social platform. We use SharePoint Online as our document management system. And there we manage all the project plans, the contracts, the pilot documents and the planning documentation and the training material that we're putting together for those projects. And also, tasks and contacts and things all into one place. So I've got a lot of information that I need to go into different interfaces for. and it can really tie up my time. So it wastes, it could potentially waste a lot of my time in kind of the administration of pulling that information all together. So let's have a look at an example of that, and let's say a day in my life. So for example, here I've received an email from one of my colleagues in the sales team that's been basically speaking to a prospective client. They've obviously had some dialogue there. They've understood a bit more about their kind of main requirements, in this case, managing emails in SharePoint Online, some information about the kind of account and things. Now, I might be in the process of preparing something else, or maybe I'm just about to do a demo for another prospect. So I need to understand what the urgency of this particular activity is. And I can see that Elisa here is actually asking to have a meeting with the prospect this afternoon. So I need to know, okay, I've got maybe 10 minutes before my next meeting. Can I actually get the things prepared in preparation for that call this afternoon? So if I just expand the Harmony sidebar, you'll see that actually Collage, which is a technology that we're embedding into the Harmony product, has actually analyzed this email for me, and it's intelligently identified some topics from that email. So here we can see that it relates to a particular account. It has a particular, let's say, initiative around it, SharePoint Online and Office 365. And it's also identified the industry that this particular prospect is in. So Collage is using intelligent machine learning technology to actually identify the topics that are of real interest to me as a business user. So it identifies proper nouns and how often they occur and where they're occurring in the sentences in those emails and things. So we can see from that, I'm connecting to all the different systems that I need to use to get my job done. So SharePoint as our document management system, Outlook obviously as my mail system, Dynamics as our CRM, Yammer as our social platform, and Zendesk as our support system. So using those topics that Collage has actually identified, I can see that actually it's picked up the account coming from Dynamics. Now I want to find out more information about that, but I don't want to have to go and search in different interfaces to pull that information together. So directly from the Harmony sidebar, I can see the summary information about that account coming from Dynamics. Okay, I can see the size of the opportunity, when it's likely to close, and the kind of contacts that we've got there. But also, I can actually see if there's an opportunity at the moment. And I can see it's a reasonably sizable opportunity that's likely to close this quarter. So, okay, I'm busy, but I need to spend 10 minutes focusing on this at the moment. If I want to find out more information about that opportunity, I can simply click on the open button there, and Harmony will take me directly to that particular account and opportunity in Dynamics. I can see all the activity that's occurred on that, and obviously what status we're at the moment. So without me having to go into lots of different interfaces, I can see, for example, the information that relates to this account, but also I can see updates coming from all of those sources that I've connected to. So we can see that actually some of those topics are common topics with other information. So I can see information about this webinar that we're running today, for example, in Office 365 and Dynamics 365. But also I can see information about the account. For example, the probability of that account was increased recently. I can also see if there's any support tickets that relate to any of these topics. And I can use those topics then to actually navigate. So what do I need to do to reply to Elisa? I need to prepare a pilot document. So we've got some templates to do that, but I don't have time to do that from scratch. So actually, I want to use those topics to actually find some information that I can maybe reuse. So here, for example, I can see some of the email dialogue that's related to this particular industry, this pharmaceutical industry. But also I can see that actually there's a pilot document that we used recently. So from there, Harmony allows me to go directly to that existing document and I can work on it from here. So in this case, this is a document in SharePoint. I can even preview that document from here, and I can take a look at it to say, okay, that looks kind of like what we need for this particular account based on the information I've got so far. So I'm going to take that as a kind of starting point. So from here, I can simply copy that document, paste it into the same library, and go through the process of actually creating that as a new item and reuse some of the information there. So let's create that as a document, and you'll see that Harmony understands all the different content types and metadata and things that you've actually got configured in SharePoint. So in this case, this is that new one for Ravenwood project. And I'm going to create that as there's the name. So if I go ahead and save that document, I can now start working on it directly from here. So let's just open that up into Word. And maybe I'm just going to take this as a starting point. So I'm going to replace, let's say, this other account with Ravenwood. So you'll see Harmony interacts with all of the applications, even like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, nice and intuitively and easily, so that I'm not having to start off lots of different applications separately. So let's go ahead and say, okay, this the background of this is good. It's actually going to be by the end of this month, so or maybe next month, say September. And I need to just take out some of this pre-existing data. Let's say, okay, we're going to discuss the timescale of this pilot with the contacts this afternoon. So we'll just blank out those fields. And the use cases here are pretty similar to what Elise to be saved back into SharePoint. So now that document's checked in, it's updated, and Elisa can send that to the prospect in advance of the call. Now, I could also send it to Elisa myself. So, for example, if I compose a new email here, you'll see that Harmony is available in my my email messages as well, and I can easily send a link to this document. So let's say, okay, hi Elisa, this is test for Ravenwood. And hi, as discussed, please see the pilot document that I've attached. So in this case, I can actually drag that document into the email to send Elisa a link to that document that we've prepared. Now, when I hit send, I don't know if Elisa actually has access to that document. So from here, I can, when I hit send, it's going to analyze the link and the person I'm sending it to. So I can choose here to make ensure that Elisa can actually view that document or edit it in the future. So let's grant her edit permissions. And let's fast forward a few steps in that process. Okay, I've now gone on and I've done some other meetings with some other prospects, and I've had my lunch, and I've come back, and we've had that meeting with the guys at Ravenwood in the afternoon. Now, we sent that document to the contacts there, and they've sent it back as an attachment. And I need to save that and capture it into SharePoint as a signed document. So I can do that simply by dragging and dropping that document that we received onto the version that we created earlier, and there we can see that it's actually renamed it back to the original file name, even though they'd changed it. And I can also see the information that they've filled in. So in this case, they've gone ahead and put in all the dates and the criteria and the contacts that we needed. So in a very short space of time, you'll see that I've pulled together and worked with all the systems that I need to in order to get my job done. And Harmony has really, really helped in that process. So let's take a little kind of recap on that. In Harmony, with Collage, I can see a single view, an overall picture made up of all the component parts of the details, so that I can stay focused on what I need to actually get my job done. I can also manage my documents in SharePoint alongside the accounts in Dynamics, so that we're actually using the best platform for each part of that process, rather than putting some documents in SharePoint and some documents and emails in Dynamics, and kind of like having a mixed environment of, I don't know where I need to actually find that information. But even if there is a mixture of content, Harmony, because I can connect to them all in the same way, I can actually see a consolidated view of records and information across those systems. I can also take action directly from my email. So without having to go outside of my Outlook interface, Harmony takes me to the relevant information at the right time and allows me to get to those items, whether they're documents in SharePoint, records in Dynamics, or emails in Exchange. So a little bit about Harmony, if you're not familiar with us already. We've been working on the Outlook integration for a number of years now. We've got many customers across different industries, and we're really taking a focus on the user interface, the user experience, and humanizing the way that people use technology. We've been recognized by many different partners and independent analysts as a company that are really forward-thinking. We're utilizing all the key capabilities of the tools that we connect to. Say, for example, in Office 365, supporting things like groups and sharing capabilities and all those kind of things. And we've really add the extra layer of the kind of final mile of getting the systems to actually work in the way that end users need them to. So, for example, we utilize the Office graph in Office 365 to actually discover content and suggest them to you as a user. We've got, as I say, many customers in many different industries. As I say, we've got over 1,200 enterprise customers and almost 2 million end users. So it's a well-proven technology. It's very scalable, and it's also very, as I say, forward-thinking in terms of what requirements you have today and how we can utilize and address those moving forward. So just an excerpt from a recent study done by Forbes that identified that Collage is really taking advantage of the way that we need to understand the way that the human brain works, and we're focusing on topics that we need to work on rather than the tools that we need to use at any point in time, because we need to tie those together, and Collage is really doing that, focusing on this kind of topic-driven interface and intelligent topic identification. So with that, I think we may have some poll questions.
Yes, so we're gonna, if you would like a complimentary 30-day evaluation of Harmony, please answer yes to the poll question that's currently open on your screen, and somebody will contact you to set it up. So Richard, thank you for that. We do have a number of questions that have come in, and let's address those. So one question is, will it be possible to send a recording of the presentation? Yes, you will receive an email following the webinar with a link, probably in a day or two, to where you can see this webinar in a recorded format and view it at your leisure. A couple other questions that have come in. So Richard, this one is, does this work within a shared email box?
Yeah, I mean, Harmony is an Outlook client integration. So whatever mailboxes you're actually connected to there, Harmony will interact with. So it could be that I have some personal mailboxes or some shared mailboxes, and it works in exactly the same way.
Excellent. Okay, a couple other questions. Is this available now?
Yes, this is available right now. We've just released the Dynamics connector for Collage, literally in the last week or so. And all the functionality that I've shown today is in the latest public release of the application.
Excellent. Okay, do you support other CRM systems in addition to Dynamics 365?
Yes, we do. We also support Salesforce in exactly the same way. So you get the same kind of information, the same kind of activity feed, and we're always looking to add additional connectors to other systems. So, for example, we could integrate to things like SAP or Slack or other systems that you need to work with on a regular basis.
Okay, very good. Last question is, does this work on-premise, in the cloud? What are the requirements for the back-end systems that are be connected to this?
Okay, so Collage is basically a hosted web service that is connecting to your cloud services like Office 365, Dynamics 365, Salesforce, for example. The Harmony client itself can work with any SharePoint environment, whether it's on-premise or online. But for the Collage functionality around the topics interface and the identification of that, that is actually happening in the background in a server-side cloud service.
Okay, very good. Well, that's all the questions that we have that have come in. So I would like to just thank everyone for joining us today. As I mentioned just a moment ago, you will receive an email with a link to view this webinar at your leisure. Then you'll get that in a couple of days. And we look forward to meeting you again at our next webinar. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.